This is James Taylor, and you're listening to The Speaker's Life. In today's episode, I thought I would talk about the 6 elements of a great speaker website. Those elements that you always want to have on your speaker website. Now, this is an area that's fraught with difficulty. Different speakers have different perspectives on what you should be putting on your website. This is my perspective from having worked with hundreds of different speakers, coaching different speakers, and also having looked at hundreds of speaker websites and finding out some of those common components and some of those things that really make a speaker website stand out. Because when we have new members that come into Speakers U who are just starting on their journey as speakers, one of the first questions they ask about is, James, what should we be putting on the speaker website? Which components do we need to have? What domain name should it be on? So here's how I tend to think about websites more generally, and then we'll get into speaker websites specifically. So someone like Donald Miller, who wrote a great book called The Story Brand, talked about something called the Grunt Test. And this kind of goes back to our human brains. The brain uses a huge amount of energy. It uses about 1,500 calories a day just to keep working. So it's a huge energy suck, the brain. Now, one of the things that our brain and our body is always looking to do is to try and find ways to reduce that energy, reduce that calorific burn of our brain. And one way it does that is when it spots patterns, it goes, that's what that is. This is what I need to do. So when it spots a snake that's kind of coming out through the grass, it immediately knows what to do. It doesn't have to think too difficult. And this reduces the burn rate of the calories in our brain. So we call this, when it comes to websites, that we call it the Grunt Test, being able to make decisions very quickly because you recognize where a pattern is showing up previously. So when it comes to looking at websites, someone will make a decision on your website, what it means and what they should do, or whether they should just go away within seconds. And sometimes it's even milliseconds. So it really is important that you have a couple of things in place right from the get-go. So even when I look at your website from 2 meters away, I can almost know instinctively, this is the button that you want me to press. This is what you do. This is what you're about. So these are the 6 elements that I believe that every speaker website should have. The first one, let's talk about the actual domain name itself. Now, you can, if it's available, get yourname.com. That's, you could argue, is the ideal. In my case, James Taylor. JamesTaylor.com wasn't available. There's another James Taylor out there, musician. So I was able to get JamesTaylor.me. I could have also got JamesTaylor.org. So that's fine. Now, there's some downsides to this. If you have a very common name, which like mine, James Taylor in the West is quite a common name, or if your name is difficult to pronounce. If I was to shout your name across a crowded bar, would that other person I'm shouting it to, would they be able to understand what I said and be able to write it down with the correct spelling? If not, then you might want to think about not using your name for your domain. You might want to use the topic that you're known for example, the innovation speaker, if you were .com, if you're a speaker about innovation, or your key phrase, your keyword phrase that you have built and you build everything around. So if we think of someone like Simon Sinek, I don't think Simon Sinek has simonsinek.com. He might have Simon Sinek, but actually all the traffic he builds around is startwithwhy.com. Start with why. That's the phrase. In fact, more people know that phrase, start with why, than they probably know the name Simon Sinek, even though it's his phrase, the phrase that he made popular. So he bought startwithwhy.com, and that has all the information on that website, all about his speaking and his training and his other programs that he has. Likewise, with a good friend of mine, Rob Waldo Waldman, who's a former fighter pilot. Now, he speaks a lot about being a wingman to your team in a corporate setting. So it actually made a lot of sense for his domain name to be yourwingman.com. Very memorable, because even though he's a fighter pilot, a former fighter pilot, and people, there's lots of speakers out there who have maybe served in the military, or in the Navy, or the Army, or the Air Force in one way. It's like you sometimes think, oh yeah, what was that person that I remember that they were in the Army and they came up and gave a speech, but you know that they kind of blur into one another. So by really pushing forward, not so much his individual name, but this idea of your wingman, being your wingman, having a wingman, and making that his domain name, is a very easy thing for people to start to remember. So that's number one. I suggest your domain name should either be your name or your topic that you're known for, such and such speaker.com, or the phrase that you want to be known for. Next is the video. And actually, before I came on this today, I actually picked up the phone to a bunch of different speaker bureaus, and I asked them, what do you like from when you go on a speaker's website to see in their video show reel? And I had a whole bunch of different answers to that. Some like very short 2 to 3 minute videos, kind of almost what we call a sizzle reel, which just kind of real top highlights. They want to see a bit of you on stage, something about the challenge or the problem that you solve, and ideally maybe even a testimonial from someone. I think what's probably more common is on speaker websites is having a video which is 6 to 10 minutes in length, and something that has some time of you really speaking on stage, sharing a message. Now, there's different people have different perspectives on whether you should have lots of video of your audience in there. I'm not that keen on having lots of audience shots in there. That's just me, but other people may say other things. But my general preference for your main video show reel is a video that's 3 to 5 minutes in length. You should have a really strong start to grip people, to bring them into what the problem is that you're there to solve. Ideally, you want to have you like on camera as early as possible in that as well, on stage if you can, or doing a direct to camera. And then throughout that, you kind of want to be kind of calling out to different challenges your audience may have and talking about how you kind of solve them, or the trends that you speak about if you're more of a futurist, for example. And then I would say peppered within that is maybe 2 to 3 real strong pieces of you speaking on stage, different stages, sharing one idea, one concept. One of them can be a real strong thought-provoking type of piece. Another one is something where you show a little bit more humor in your character as well. But you kind of basically build that little sizzle reel, that show reel, 3 to 5 minutes in length. Now, ideally, you're going to want to have lots of other videos of you speaking on stage, longer videos, but that's a really good one to have there, and you can kind of put those together relatively quickly. The third one is to have an inquiry form or button with contact information. Now, you'd be surprised is if I go onto a lot of speakers' websites and I look at those homepages or those speaker websites, I can actually see, what do you actually want me to do? And one of the things that you should probably want people to do is either to watch the video, because it's the number one thing that can sell you, and then from there, somewhere on the page, pretty much at all times, you want to have a book John, if your name is John, or inquire about dates, or check availability, or something that has that kind of call to action, which is going to take people onto an inquiry form, or have them click on a button. Now, I would say on the inquiry form, I would normally suggest have an actual proper form. If you can tie that into your CRM if you have a CRM, or it can just send you an email to let you know someone's completed that form. It means that it looks more professional, and it also shows that you ask the potential client for certain amounts of information, and essentially you can see almost from the information that kind of comes in on that form, how much of it is completed, whether this is a serious inquiry. And so I'm usually looking for things like they actually have a specific date in mind with a specific city, and in the information that they're providing, they're giving some indication that they're a type of client that I would probably work with, usually a corporate in my case. It doesn't have to be, it could be an association, for example. And the magic words I'm always kind of looking for is, we loved what we saw on your website, we would like to see about booking you to speak at our event. If I see other little phrases on those inquiry forms coming in, like we would like to invite you, that provides a little bit more of a red flag to me, because then you can start to get into, was this really a paid speaking inquiry, or are they just looking for more of a free speaker? Now, that's number 3. Then creating that inquiry form on your website or a button. And the other thing to have on that page is to have your contact information. Someone actually messaged me yesterday saying one thing I like about your booking form is you actually put the inquiry form, but you also had a telephone number and a direct email address for both myself and my assistant. And actually we had in different codes. We have a UK number and an American number as well. And they actually really appreciated that you could just reach out to me. If they wanted, they could call me. Actually, most people just send in an email or send through the form. But it's there, it's a little bit of peace of mind as well. In fact, I know some speakers who actually suggest putting that telephone number, if you're in America, like an 800 number right at the top of the navigation, which is another way to do it. In my case, I speak more globally, and 800 is a very American style of number. So because I speak more globally, that doesn't make quite as much sense for me. Next is having some great photography. Really spend some time, spend a little bit of money working with a really good photographer who's going to get some great shots. Now, there's different types of shots that you'll need. You'll need photos, like really nice headshots, strong headshots. I also suggest you have some action shots of you speaking on stage, those kind of things. And if you can, try and get some shots where you've got lots of empty space to your left, to your right. I even have some shots of me pointing at the empty space. And what they're useful for is if a conference is putting together a program, they might put, if you're the keynote speaker, put that picture of you there and use the empty white space to put the title of the event or the logo of the particular event. So you're just kind of helping that. And the better the photography that you have, the more likely that you're going to get onto those front covers of the magazines or front covers on in brochures for particular events, or you're going to get used on their social media as they're promoting that event. It's all about the quality of the photography there. Fifth is having a page with actually information about your speech. So you want to have there, what is the title of the speech? In my case, my title is Super Creativity. That's the title of my speech, and people can. I'm always talking about this idea of super creativity. That's what people can know me for. But then I have the subtitle, which actually provides a little bit more information. The kind of title is really there to go, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. And then the subtitle will kind of start to fill in the blanks. So in my case, a subtitle is Augmenting Human Creativity in the Age of Artificial Intelligence. So this says, okay, this guy is about the human creativity piece, creativity, but it's also got this AI thing that's going up, kind of futurist type stuff. So that's kind of nice blend. So I like blending a subtitle which has a mixture of the very human, soft skills, and the more kind of harder side, or you might call out to the challenge that your client has. For example, you could say, adapting to using XYZ to adapt to change, and that XYZ might be the topic that you speak on. Then you have the description. And in the description, I usually like to kind of call out what the challenge or the problem is that people have. Maybe put a very simple stat of some sort to show what that challenge is, a real challenge. And then talk about how you solve that problem in your speech. And kind of giving people a sense of like what the experience is of that. Whether you have a lot of humor in your speech, or you do a lot of interaction, or things are really tailored for each individual client. That's what you would have on a description. And then I also like to put some learning outcomes or kind of takeaways, you might call them as well. This, in the world of HR, they tend to talk a lot about learning outcomes. I see that less if you're dealing with someone in the C-suite, for example. But if you're dealing with someone that's HR, comes from a training perspective, they'll really appreciate that you have these outcomes. You say, the audience will learn the 5 ways to blah-de-blah-de-blah. That just kind of shows there's some real kind of good content in there, and that has some kind of basis in, and also actually allows you to, if you do have training that you offer in addition to your speaking, it allows you to kind of open up that kind of conversation as well, because you could actually take one of those pieces and actually put it into a full day's training if you wanted to. And then finally, testimonials. Always be trying to collect testimonials, written testimonials, spoken testimonials, video testimonials, any way you can get a testimonial. Try and get a testimonial. Now, in this training, in this particular episode, I won't get into kind of what to try and have in those testimonials, but I just kind of wanted to say, really try your best every time you go and speak at an event. Try and thinking about how you could be capturing testimonials there. So those are the 6 different elements of a speaker website. So you want to have thinking about the actual domain name, whether it should be your own name or your topic or the phrase that you're known for. Number 2 is the video show reel. Number 3 is an inquiry form or a button with contact information here, so people can send that inquiry to book you. Number 4 is some great photography. Number 5 is that speech title, subtitle, description, outcomes. What is it you're actually selling? And then number 6 is the testimonials as well. In fact, a speaker website can just be one page. If you think about it, if you just had one page with all of those elements, you're ready to go to market as well. So my name's James Taylor. This is The Speaker's Life. Thanks so much for listening today.